In the early 1700s, the world was silent. Life moved slowly. Farms stretched endlessly. Crafts were handmade and oil lamps flickered in the dark. But something was brewing deep beneath England. Something that would turn the silence of the fields into the roar of machines. It all began with coal. Buried underground, coal was the black gold that would fuel a revolution. Then came James Watt, a man with a head full of ideas. He tinkered, he theorized, and he changed the world forever. Watt didn't just improve the steam engine, he gave the world the power to move without muscle. His engine was a breakthrough, an incredible machine that harnessed the power of steam to do work, to move things and drive machinery. It's hard to overstate its impact. It was like discovering a new source of energy, a genie in a bottle. With this breakthrough, the genie was unleashed, and it changed everything. And then it happened, a peaceful town. One day a factory opened nearby. At first it was just a small building with a few machines, but soon it grew. More factories followed. Then another industry arrived, bringing more jobs and more people. Before anyone knew it, the town was surrounded by towering buildings, belching smoke. The rhythmic clatter of machinery drowned out the birdsong. Fields were paved over, replaced by rows upon rows of machines. Homes were crammed together, each sheltering families toiling in the factories. The air hung heavy with coal dust, making the sky gray and the river black. This is how it started, quietly, steadily, and before long, it roared into life. James Watt died not knowing the chaos his invention would unleash. But as the factories hummed and the wheels turned, something new was born. England took off. Goods were produced faster than ever before. Shops overflowed with products. And England became the workshop of the world. Textiles, hardware, glass, chemicals, everything was made in England first. It was a golden age for some. Factory owners and investors saw their wealth grow. They became a new class of rich, owning the means of production, shaping the world to their will. But what about the workers? Men, women, and even children crowded into dark, dank factories. Their days were filled with the screech of metal and the hiss of steam. They worked in deafening din, often without safety nets. Accidents were common. Fingers were lost, limbs were crushed, and lives were snuffed out. Working in these factories was hard, dangerous, repetitive, and soul-destroying. But there was no other option. Families needed the money, and the towns had become too crowded to leave. So they toiled on, their faces smudged with grime, their lungs aching from the coal dust, dreaming of a better life. Manchester, a quiet village once, became the cotton capital of Europe. But behind the smoke and steel, a dark story unfolded. Children as young as 8 years old worked 14-hour shifts, operating dangerous machines, their innocence lost in the gloom. Pregnant women stood beside spinning machines, their unborn babies at risk from the very air they breathed. Wages were just enough to survive, barely covering the cost of food and shelter. Families lived in poverty, trapped in a cycle of hardship and debt. Yet amidst the grime and the struggle, a new spirit was born, the voice of protest. Workers began to unite, demanding better conditions, safer workplaces, and fair wages. Leaders like Karl Marx emerged, shouting, "There are those who own the factories, the capitalists, and those who die working in them, the proletariat." The fire of change was lit, and it wouldn't be ignored. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just a British phenomenon. It spread like wildfire fanned by the winds of change. From England, it moved to France, where the looms started to clatter in the workshops of Paris. Then to Germany, where the iron and steel industries boomed in the Ruhr Valley. Finally, across the Atlantic, it reached America, where immigrants flocked to cities like New York and Chicago. There they huddled in tenements, hoping for a piece of the American dream. For 2 centuries, the world raced ahead. Agriculture was replaced by industry. Handcrafted items were mass-produced. The world was changing fast and it wasn't stopping. By 1850, production outpaced demand for the first time in history. There were more goods than people could consume. The world was swimming in products, and this led to something entirely new: a working class. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people were either landowners or workers. But now a new class emerged, the one that owned the factories and the means of production, the capitalists. They set the rules, set the pace, and reaped the rewards. On the other end were the workers, toiling in the factories, selling their labor for a wage. Between these two classes, a divide grew, a chasm of wealth and power that would shape the world for generations. The Industrial Revolution gave rise to some of the greatest minds of our time. Visionaries like Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, who illuminated the world with his incandescent light bulb. Pioneers like the Wright brothers, who conquered the skies with their first successful airplane. Innovators like Henry Ford, who revolutionized manufacturing with his assembly line. These names became synonymous with progress. Their inventions and innovations drove the Industrial Revolution forward. Cities buzzed with activity. People crowded into urban centers, drawn by the promise of jobs and a new life. Skyscrapers touched the clouds, steel and glass giants piercing the skyline. Bridges arched majestically over rivers, connecting communities and facilitating trade. Steamboats chugged on mighty rivers, carrying goods and people to distant lands. Trains shrieked as they pulled long lines of cars, linking cities and opening up new frontiers. Communication networks expanded, connecting distant corners of the globe. Telegraph wires hummed with messages, shrinking the world with every click. Factories pumped out goods, churning out products at an astonishing rate. Machines roared, powered by steam and later by electricity. Mass production became the norm, supplying the world with an abundance of goods. Coal fueled the revolution, powering the engines of change. Mines dug deeper, extracting the black gold that drove the factories. Railways snaked across the countryside, transporting coal to power the industrial might. As coal smoke billowed into the sky, so did the fortunes of the industrialists. Their empires grew, built on the sweat of workers and the bounty of coal. The world went from agricultural to industrial in less than 2 centuries. It was a dramatic shift that reshaped societies, transformed economies, and altered the course of human history. But amidst the progress and innovation, there was a darker side, a shadow cast by the relentless march of industry. The Industrial Revolution came at a price. Cities became overcrowded, housing was scarce, and sanitation was neglected. Disease spread easily, claiming lives, especially among the poor and the weak. Child labor was rampant, with young children working in dangerous conditions, robbing them of their childhood and subjecting them to harsh, unhealthy environments. Exploitation and inequality became widespread. The gap between the rich and the poor grew, leading to social unrest and calls for reform. So was the Industrial Revolution a curse or a blessing? A step forward or a giant leap? The answer isn't simple. It's a tale of 2 sides, of progress and exploitation, of innovation and inequality. It was a time when machines took over, when factories dominated, and when the world was irrevocably changed. The Industrial Revolution was more than just about machines and factories. It was about a shift in power, the rise of new classes, the growth of cities, and the expansion of global trade. It was about how we produced, how we consumed, and how we lived. As the steam engine chugged and the machines whirred, a new world was born. A world of innovation and progress, but also of challenges and inequality. As we look back, we can marvel at the achievements, the innovations that shaped our modern world. But we must also acknowledge the struggles, the hardships, and the lessons. Did we gain more than we lost? Did this speed make us happier or just busier? These questions echo even today as we grapple with the legacy of the Industrial Revolution. It's a reminder that progress isn't just about moving faster, it's about moving in the right direction. If you want to learn more about how we went from horse-drawn carriages to self-driving cars, click here. Or if you prefer, click here for another video that might catch your interest. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.